Hi everyone, I'm attorney Minhas. I practice U.S. immigration law all over the United States. Today's topic is going to be about parents of U.S. citizens who are 21 years or older, and this is going to cover adjustment of status applications that are filed within the United States, but it's going to go into a little more of a complex type of situation. So to make things a little easier, I'm going to cover 3 topics because I have several videos about parents of U.S. citizens who are seeking to adjust their status in the United States. Please check those out. And to make things easier, I have provided links in the description so you can check out those videos and see what those topics cover. But today we are going to focus on maybe lack of documents, where if you as a parent don't have a birth certificate or you don't have a marriage certificate, so how do you prove to the government that this is actually you? Then we're going to move on to the second topic, which is going to be about lack of financials. So if you have a child that is sponsoring you or petitioning for you and they're a full-time student and they're not able to produce financials because they're not working, what happens at that stage? Because you do need to file an affidavit of support in order for you to obtain the green card ultimately. And the third topic is going to cover briefly on things like misrepresentation, fraud, or even alien smuggling. So stay tuned and keep watching. So I'm not going to cover the basics of, when a parent should be applying for adjustment of status. I've already covered that in my previous videos, so please do check that out. But I'm just going to jump into the topic because I know there are some matters where they usually come to me, believe it or not, either when they're at the request for evidence stage or the case has already been denied. But sometimes it's best for you to hire an immigration attorney and consult with one at the inception. So in the beginning of the case, you would want to really check out what the pros and the cons are. And if there are cons, when you get to a certain stage, do you have backup or do you have a plan in place to address issues that might come up? So we're going to start off with the first topic. First topic is I've run into these issues frequently, like I said, during the request for evidence stage, where the beneficiary, which is the parent, doesn't have identification documents such as a birth certificate, or they don't have their marriage certificate. And there are times where they have issued or they've gotten a non-availability certificate from the government and issued it to USCIS, and USCIS is like, wait, that's not enough. Like, can't do that. So what happens there? All right, so I'm going to give you an example. So if you're an Indian citizen or national of India, and you have, because if you look at the laws of the country, there's a requirement that says, okay, you need to have a birth certificate. But if you were born at a certain time where there is no birth certificate, then it just will be deemed as it not being available, right? But you get the non-availability certificate because you're able to get it and you submit it. But if you check out the Department of State website for India, they also require you to gather secondary evidence. Secondary evidence could be, if you were employed somewhere in India, or you have, an Aadhaar card to show, okay, this is your date of birth, or you have affidavits from people. If you have this type of situation and you are about to submit documentation along with your adjustment of status, this is where it's best to work with an immigration attorney, because the immigration attorney will know what type of evidence you need to gather from the beginning, so you don't end up in a situation where you have a request for evidence or, there is a delay in your case, because ultimately these things are going to be required. USCIS doesn't know it's you. You have to prove that it's you. So how are you able to prove that? So that's one of the things I wanted to mention. It's very, very important for you not to just think that, this is an application, I'm going to submit it with certain documents, and then that should be good. There have been many times where individuals have come to me and said, well, Poonam, we submitted the non-availability certificate, and they still said, no, this is not enough, it's not good enough. Well, that's true, because USCIS needs additional evidence to prove, okay, this is your date of birth, or they need additional information to prove that you were married on a certain date and you were married somewhere. And, there are also times where maybe you don't have a marriage certificate because it was never registered, or you don't have the physical documentation. So how can you prove it? This is something that you should definitely strategize with an immigration attorney to see what you can produce and what you can't. I'm not going to cover the details of, what information needs to be provided. This information is available on, the Department of State website or even on the USCIS website, but to really have it customized to your case, because at the end of the day, you have to identify yourself and show that you have a relationship with your child. It would be best to work in a private setting to strategize your case before submitting it. Now let's cover the affidavit of support, like the financials of submitting your green card case. I can't tell you how many cases I've come across where the beneficiary and the petitioner are scrambling because they've been issued a request for evidence from USCIS, and they're scrambling and looking for a co-sponsor or someone who is a U.S. citizen or a green card holder that is willing to financially support the beneficiary. It gets really crazy because if that RFE is not responded to, or if you don't have somebody who can produce financials that are good enough for processing, then USCIS may deny the entire case just based on that. So it would be best to sit down with an immigration attorney to make sure, okay, you know what? I have this situation where my child is 21, he's a US citizen, and I qualify for adjustment of status. So everything is good, but my child doesn't work. Okay, my child is a full-time student and has no financials, can't financially support me. What do I do? Great question. You need now to sit down and evaluate who can you reach out to who is willing to financially support you, meeting the qualifications that are necessary for USCIS when you're about to submit your adjustment of status application. If you have a co-sponsor ready, great, wonderful. Work with an immigration attorney to see what financial documents are needed, what information needs to make its way to the affidavit of support. But I want to give you a tip. Even though your child is not able to financially support you, they would still have to fill out an affidavit of support and submit it with the adjustment of status application along with the co-sponsor's application and information. That is mandatory. You do have to submit that. But like I said, these are not just applications you submit, but you need to have a game plan ready, because the last thing you need is submit something and then next thing you know, you're getting an RFE with the deadline this time, right? And if you're not able to meet that deadline, you're going to have issues. Okay, the last topic I'm going to cover, and I'm going to mention it interchangeably, like I'm going to go back and forth with it, even though it's not the same thing. But if you have a situation where this is you or this is someone that you may know. So I also come across situations where adjustment of status application is filed, everything is going well, and then all of a sudden the person gets hit with, well, you committed fraud or you lied and you did this on so-and-so date. Now you need a waiver, okay? So what does that mean? That means that at that point, you need to file an additional set of paperwork and application to overcome that fraud or misrepresentation. Now I'm going to switch over. I've also come across situations where USCIS is now claiming that you have done something like help somebody come into the United States unlawfully. So that's marked as alien smuggling. And that could have been a family member or non-family member or whoever. And their records show that. So at this point, now you have to make sure, especially if you're navigating your case pro se, you need to get an attorney involved to see whether you even qualify for a waiver. And a lot of times I've seen this as well, where the person gets to the waiver stage, but they don't have a qualifying relative. And they're not able to show that hardship that they need to show for the waiver. So now what happens? Case is pretty much done because you don't have something that you can work with, or you don't qualify for the next step in order to overcome that situation get it waived, and then ultimately have the green card issued to you. So if you have a situation where you have been told, you know what, you committed fraud, or you misrepresented yourself, or you brought somebody into this country and we find you that you've done something like alien smuggling, you now need to really sit down and strategize and figure out if there's a way to overcome that issue. There are also times where clients are like, we never did that, or we never had this situation. Like, I didn't procure any type of, immigration benefit from this lie, or it's not material. This is where communicating and consulting with an immigration attorney really helps, because now it's like you're arguing, do I even have to file a waiver? Because I didn't even do any of this. Like, where are they getting this from? This is very, very important. And I know I've seen situations which go both ways, whether it's actually happened as a record of it, or whether something actually hasn't happened. And how to tackle that is where you would need that legal representation. So I really hope today's 3 topics related to the parent adjustment of status matter. I know it's a little more complicated. I wanted to cover this today so you can really sit down and see, okay, I might have this issue. And if I have this issue, then I need to pick up the phone, schedule a consultation with someone I trust that's an immigration attorney who's going to help me navigate this case, especially since I haven't filed anything yet. Or, hey, I got this RFE, I need to jump on this right away to see how to handle this. So that's your best option, is to work with someone that really knows what they're doing. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions that are general in nature, you may use the comment section below, but I do not encourage you to use it if it's going to be something that is specific to your case. It would be best to set up a consultation. Again, if you have not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon to stay updated on anything I post about U.S. immigration. I really hope today's video was helpful. If it was, share this with your friends and family. You never know who this might help. Thank you again, and I'll be back soon.